Hello everyone, I hope you all had an excellent weekend. We're back at the 1970 Palma de Mallorca Interzonal tournament. It's Bobby Fischer versus Brazilian Grandmaster Henrique Mecking. Now, this is not the first time Fischer faces Mecking, but we're gonna talk about that after we do the photo challenge. Now, I'm pretty sure it's gonna be an easy one, but nevertheless, he is a bit young in this photo, so best of luck to everyone. Who is the gentleman here? There you have it. I mean, the facial expression is there. I'm pretty sure most of you will know this. And a lot of you have suggested that I should say who was in the photo challenge of the previous video. In the previous video, it was Boris Spassky, but I will not be doing this because as soon as some of you get the correct answer in the comments, I will give that comment a heart. And then probably some 5, 6, 7 of you, after you give the correct answer, I will give all of your comments a heart. And then when someone scrolls down, you will see in the comments, the first 7 comments you will see will be the correct answer to the photo challenge. So that's basically what I had in mind. Some of you might have gotten this, some of you might not have, but there's no need to explain in every video who was the person in the previous photo challenge. You know, just scroll down and you will see them. So that being said, let's check it out. I did not do a video on the previous game Mecking and Fischer played because prior to this game they played in Palma de Mallorca 1970 a couple of months ago. Before this game there was a very nice tournament in Buenos Aires where two of them met. It was a very nice Grunfeld game. Mecking drew against Fischer with the white pieces. I think it was around 30 moves or something. It's a very nice game. I still didn't do a video on that game because I am planning to cover the Buenos Aires tournament at some point. But I did cover a game Mecking played against Miguel Najdorf. It is really a beautiful game. So for those of you who are interested in Henrique Mecking and some of his games, I will put a link to this video in the description below. Feel free to check it out. And as I did not start this series with Fischer winning the Buenos Aires tournament as well, even though it was a very impressive victory. He crushed the field there as well. It's not really a part of the World Chess Championship series, so I decided to skip it. But you know, just for fun, these are the final standings of the Buenos Aires tournament of 1970. I think it was played in August. The Palma de Mallorca tournament is played in December, so a couple of months ago. So there you have it, Bobby Fischer with 15 out of 17. So 0 losses, only 4 draws out of 17 games. That is very impressive. Followed by Tukmakov, Panno, Georgiou, Najdorf, Reshevsky, Smyslov, and Mecking. There you have Mecking in 8th place. So very nice. I just wanted to show you that Fischer was in extreme form when Mecking managed to draw a game against him in 1970 Buenos Aires tournament. At some point I will probably cover this tournament as well and then maybe add it to the Fischer series, but not now, as currently we're going after the World Chess Championship series. But as in that video where Mecking faces Miguel Najdorf, I did say something more about Henrique Mecking, so feel free to check it out if you want to learn something more about the Brazilian Grandmaster. So that being said, let's check out this game. We do not have a photo of the matchup, but you know there are very few photos of the 1970 Palma de Mallorca tournament. Fischer once again opens not with any of his main weapons with e4, rather he opens with b3, the Nimzowitsch-Larsen attack. d5. Bishop to b2, c5, we have knight to f3 and the knight to c6. And I was sure I did this before the video, for some reason I haven't. Knight to c6, we have e3, knight to f6, and now bishop to b5. A standard idea in the Nimzowitsch-Larsen attack. White will often give up this bishop for this knight, give up the bishop pair early, but because he already has this nice setup a3, b3, a2, b3, and c2, and a nice fianchettoed bishop on b2, the semi-open b file for the rook will not be compensation enough for the ruining of the pawn structure. We have bishop to d7, and now castles by Fischer. e6, d3, bishop to e7, and now Fischer captures on c6. Bishop captures and bishop captures. You don't want to play pawn captures, as we've just explained that okay, you do capture towards the center, you kind of improve your central structure a bit, but it's no compensation, as like we said, the semi-open b file for the rook is not all that great now. So after bishop c6, we have bishop captures, and now knight to e5, and of course Mecking goes rook to c8, not allowing Fischer to double his pawns. Knight to d2, we have castles, and now f4. Fischer, of course, wants to complement his dark square bishop by placing his pawns on nice e3 and f4 dark squares, where he will gain further control of these nice central squares. Knight d7, offering a trade of knights, and here we have queen to g4. You don't want to do something silly like play h6 here, as you have to see that the bishop and queen are eyeing g7, so after knight captures attacking the queen, it's game over. You either lose the queen or you will capture the knight and get checkmated. So Mecking, of course, goes knight captures on e5, bishop captures on e5, and now, to avoid checkmate, he plays bishop to f6. We have rook to f3, Fischer does a nice rook lift, queen to e7, and now the other rook comes to f1. So it's very easy for Fischer to develop his pieces. He gave up his light square bishops, but he does have the rook pair is nicely doubled on the f-file. He does have a very nice bishop on e5, and still he has to figure out how to get the knight from d2 to a more active square. We have a5 here. If you play something like g6 to start defending before there's any threat here, that's not something a grandmaster will usually do. Here you can simply choose whether you want to go rook h3 or how you want to proceed here, but you don't want to give white any targets just yet, as f5 is not immediately a threat. So first a5, we have rook to g3, and now bishop captures on e5, pawn captures on e5, and now f5. It's often the situation where you will have to decide how to defend g7. Will you play g6 or will you play f5 so the queen can guard the g7 pawn? Here, if you play something like g6, this will immediately be met with rook to f6. You will never be able to push the f-pawn anymore, and white's plan will be very simple. Rook will come to h3, queen will come to h4, the knight can easily come into the game. This would be winning for white. So after f5, after f captures on e5, we have f5, e captures on f6. Fischer does not mind opening up the f-file, but also by playing f5, Fischer wins a pawn. So we have e captures on f6, rook captures on f6, and now I'm sure all of you can see how to win a pawn here. It's a nice little trick. Feel free to pause the video here and try to win a pawn here for white. So I will give it a second if you want to just try and do it, as it is a Monday, so you might be a little bit lazy. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations, you are an excellent pawn grabber. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, queen captures on g7, of course. Queen captures, and now rook captures on f6. The queen cannot capture back as the rook pins the queen. So queen captures g3, h captures on g3, and now rook to e8, defending the pawn here. And here Fischer goes for the top engine recommendation, g4. Simply pushing the pawn, preparing to meet king g7, attacking the rook with g5 and cementing that rook on f6. G4, we have a4, knight to f3, pawn captures, and king to g7. And now g5, as we've said. e5 is coming, now Fischer plays knight to h4. It would be very nice if he could get knight to f5 with check into the game, so bishop to d7 preventing this. And now rook to d6, a very nice way to activate the rook. We have bishop to e6, and now king to f2, simply improving the position of the king. King f7, we have rook to b6, attacking the b7 pawn, rook to e7 defending the pawn, and now e4. Captures, and we have c4 now. And of course, Fischer does not want to trade down. He wants to play b4, push his pawn to a dark square, and all of these pawns will now remain targets for black. Fischer does not want to push c3 anytime soon, because he doesn't want to allow ideas like rook d7 and then the rook will be able to come to d3. This way, it's a very nice pawn that prevents the rook from infiltrating his position. We have bishop to g4. If white can get king f3, g4, and knight to f5, then it's pretty much game over. So bishop to g4, preventing this. Fischer goes king to e3. We have rook to d7, and now g6. A very nice pawn breakthrough that allows Fischer to to go forward. King to f8. If you capture, then after knight captures, there's really no defense against this beautiful fork, which will check the king, fork the rook, and fork this bishop. Whatever you move, you will always be able to fork something here. So after g6, king to f8, we have g captures on h7, threatening h8 queen, rook captures on h7, and now knight to g6 check. King moves, and now knight captures on e5. And now you can see that all of these lonely pawns are still targets. The bishop on g4 is under attack. You have to either move it or guard it. Mecking goes bishop to c8, and now comes knight captures on c4. King to d8, and now knight to d6. We have a rook to g7, king to f2, king to c7, and now knight captures on c8. King captures, and here we have rook to d6, and there is nothing more to do here. Fischer is up 3 pawns, and the Brazilian grandmaster decides to resign, as there is, well, it was resignable before as well, but sometimes you don't resign when you should, but rather for some reason you keep going for a couple of more moves. But now there's really no point in continuing playing this game. So yeah, that's the game. Round 21 of the Palma de Mallorca 1970 Interzonal Tournament. Bobby Fischer versus Brazilian Grandmaster Henrique Mecking. And like I've said, feel free to check out. I will put both the link to the PGN of the Mecking versus Fischer game from 1970 Buenos Aires, and also a video I made on the Henrique Mecking versus Miguel Najdorf, also a very nice game. I suggest you check it out for the game, but also to learn something more about Henrique Mecking, also known as, I believe it's Meckinho, they call him. So yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it, and that you are still enjoying the Bobby Fischer series so far. I would like to thank Krzysztof Jarecki, Guilherme Galus, and Richard Sand for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon. We have 2 more videos in the Palma de Mallorca tournament, and then we are off to the 1971 candidates matches. But both of those videos, I believe I will save for tomorrow. For this evening, I have another video planned. So yeah, thank you all, and I'll see you soon.